Hi, I'm Alain Mulder, Senior Director Europe Operations for the Institute of Management Accountants, IMA. Competition for jobs is fierce between finance professionals. Earning the Certified Management Accounting Certificate, CMA, makes you stand out. The CMA provides you with the opportunity to advance your career, earn more money and find more meaning in your work. CMAs enjoy job mobility and opportunities to work in international organizations, abroad or in your home country. Their expertise in management accounting makes them a trusted advisor and a respected voice among senior leadership. CMAs work on interesting projects with strategic value to the entire organization. The benefits of becoming a CMA and a member of IMA include access to face-to-face and online networking with finance and accounting professionals, international recognition, mastery of the 12 core competencies of management accounting, competencies to future-proof your career. The CMA means you are able to see the bigger picture of how finance works. You will become a trusted business partner, impacting and driving the business. It's your proof of your quality, dedication, which will ultimately earn you a seat at the leadership table. Get it started and register as a CMA candidate at imanet.org. Today is the first day of the rest of your career. Make it count.
Finance professionals are the foundation of every company. They need to be in touch with current issues and be experts in adapting their organizations to future challenges. It's not about crunching the numbers. It's about seeing the road ahead. The Certified Management Accountant, or CMA, is a globally respected certification that proves your mastery of the 12 core practice areas in management accounting. Earn it and take your place at the leadership table at the world's best companies. Foresee trends through the use of technology and analytics. Be responsible and sustainable through professional ethics and standards. Add value to your career and become a financial leader of the future.
Let's start. But before we progress, I would like to inform you that this event is being recorded, and by participating, you are giving your consent to the recording. So please follow basic rules of internet etiquette during the entire event in the chat, and especially when asking a question. Non-compliance with internet etiquette will result in a removal from the event. And if you happen to experience technical difficulty, please try logging on again using the event link in the Zoom confirmation email. And in case we experience any technical difficulties, please be patient and stay online for up to 10 minutes until the issue is resolved. And of course, we will communicate further steps in the unlikely event of technical problems. And my name is Alain Mulder, and I'm the Senior Director Europe Operations at IMA, the Institute of Management Accountants. Just a brief introduction about IMA. We are one of the largest and most respected associations focused exclusively on advancing the management accounting profession. And we are proud to support our members and the profession through the research, the CMA Certified Management Accountant Program, continuing education, networking, and advocacy of the highest ethical business practices. And our members are located all over the world and are supported really out of the offices that you see on this map. And before we go to the presentation and the agenda, a little bit about UiPath, who is also the partner for this webinar. They offer an end-to-end platform for automation, combining the leading robot process automation RPA solution with a full suite of capabilities that enable every organization to scale digital business operation at unprecedented speed. UiPath has a vision to deliver a full automated enterprise on where companies use automation to unlock their greatest potential. So thank you for partnering with us on organizing this webinar. So we begin with the presentation given by L'Oréal, and after that we are going to a panel of experts on RPA and automation chaired by Armand. And now I have actually the pleasure of introducing L'Oréal Giles as the Director of Research, Digital Technology and Finance Transformation at IMA, the Institute of Management Accountants, and a member of IMA's Inland Empire chapter. She has 15 years of experience in finance, accounting, and technology roles, including leading an RPA implementation in a finance organization. And L'Oréal is an author of a recently published finance function with Robotic Process Automation RPA report, which explores RPA technology, including its capabilities and software, and explains its impact on the finance and accounting function. Detailed RPA's wide-reaching applicability to specific finance and accounting process areas. So hi L'Oréal, and I hope you already had time to enjoy your morning coffee, because I understand you are in California and that's very early in the morning. So thank you for being with us. How are you?
I am outstanding, Alain. Excited to be here with you and ready to share my screen when you're ready to welcome me.
Great. I will stop sharing mine. So go ahead. It's all yours.
Thank you. All right. And if I could get a quick nod from anyone confirming you can see it.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. So I will display slides now. There we go. So as Alain was saying, I am with IMA. I am the Director of Research for Digital Technology and Finance Transformation. Again, really excited to be here. Prior to joining IMA, just last year actually, I served on IMA's Global Board of Directors and worked at BP for about 15 years across the different roles that Alain mentioned today. One thing that I observed when leading the RPA implementation for their finance and accounting organization is we didn't have extensive resources available to tell us how to progress through challenges with RPA governance, how to effectively scale RPA. There just wasn't enough information on the market. And my goal last year was to fill that void, or at least to kind of serve as a concrete stepping stone toward that direction. And the output of that effort is the report that Alain discussed, Transforming the Finance Function with RPA. You can Google that or look on the IMA website to download a free copy of the report as well. But what I'll go through today are some of the sections of that report. So we'll start with RPA technology, a few of the center sections there, the impact of RPA on the finance and accounting function specifically, RPA at scale, so what it actually means to scale RPA, and then finance and accounting professionals as RPA enablers. So what action can we as finance and accounting professionals take to move the needle from an RPA perspective? So if we dive right in and talk just a bit broadly about digital technology, in 2019, the IBM Institute for Business Value published a report. And in that report, focused on the skills gap within enterprises, they identified 120 million workers in the world's 12 largest economies may need to be retrained or reskilled in the next 3 years as a result of intelligent or AI-enabled automation. And perhaps more astonishing, at least to me, is how ill-prepared executives believed their countries and businesses are to offer the development that millions of workers will require. And that's across all disciplines within their countries. As CFOs specifically implement plans to prepare their teams for the future, finance and accounting professionals are under pressure to enhance their value offering, to reduce costs, and acquire new skills. And what we are seeing is emerging digital technologies are providing the finance and accounting function with a path toward fulfilling those obligations. And that's happening while meeting business demand for advanced analytics, efficient operations, and strategic decision support. RPA, or Robotic Process Automation specifically, presents a clear and sustainable avenue toward a transformed finance function. In a joint survey of finance and accounting professionals conducted by IMA just last year, and this was IMA and Deloitte, they examined the workforce of the future and how it will be shaped by technology, talent, and automation. We found that nearly 76% of respondents felt their accounting processes were less than 75% automated. When asked how they're expecting the type of work within finance to change specifically, more than 90% of respondents indicated they feel the level of transactional processing will either somewhat or significantly decrease and become more analytical over the next 5 years. So those are some broad thoughts just about where we're heading from a digital technology perspective, and now we'll dive into RPA a little bit deeper. A couple misconceptions about RPA technology to throw out there first, across several extremes, from it'll automate all of our jobs, only IT can implement it, RPA couldn't possibly do what I do, or RPA has no applicability to finance and accounting processes. And each of those misconceptions can be dispelled just through knowing what RPA is and what its capability is. RPA is a technology that enables a robot or a digital worker, affectionately called bots for those of us closer to it, to execute processes by emulating human interaction with computer applications through the user interface. And so when we think about what that really means, it means RPA is mimicking the clicks and keystrokes of a human user while leveraging process documentation. Bots can log into and perform tasks in accounting and operational applications, retrieve data from websites, perform data entry, and it does all of this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, if you have enough processes for it to perform. Intelligent RPA, a sophisticated pairing of RPA and AI, enables a bot to learn as it processes transactions. And so hopefully we'll get into that a bit more as well. Most RPA software is made up of 3 primary components: the bots, a bot manager, and a workflow design module. The bots themselves perform the processes. The bot manager enables scheduling and allocation of developed processes, and the workflow design module is where processes are actually developed. Although it's tempting to say, and is widely said, during an RPA implementation, we're not actually developing bots, we're developing the processes that bots will perform. I think that's an important distinction to bear in mind. If we think a little bit further about the RPA software itself, leading RPA vendors have invested heavily in developing native solutions available within their workflow design modules and partnering with other leading technology companies to offer a host of integrating technologies that raise the level of complexity of processes that can be automated with RPA. And that happens while enhancing the comprehensive value RPA is able to deliver. What you see on the screen here are just a small subset of some of the digital technologies that are integrating with RPA softwares, with platforms. And so we think about the UiPaths, the Automation Anywheres, the Blue Prisms, all of them have either native solutions or built-in connectors for data visualization, data analytics, optical character recognition, or even the intelligent character recognition side of things, natural language processing, AI, as well as machine learning. So that's a bit of an overview of what RPA is, what the software is, and what it's capable of. Now we'll shift gears into the impact for our finance and accounting professions specifically. So automation is having a wide-reaching impact on the workforce. Bloomberg developed a tool, which I thought was pretty cool, simulating the chances of jobs across a host of professions being impacted by automation. It combines wage and education requirements data, and they use the example from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics with data on probability of automation. And when they did that simulation, they identified that accountant and auditor jobs are 94% likely to be impacted by automation. Another noteworthy observation from that research is that the accountant and auditor jobs are among fewer than 10 professions requiring a bachelor's degree that are more than 90% likely to be impacted by automation. And I think that's important to note, just so we recognize that this is coming. It may not be here fully or widespread in some of our areas or in some of our organizations, but it will have a great impact over the long term for our profession. Although there are several digital tools that can be leveraged to automate finance and accounting processes. And so we think about things like data science, traditional automation using programming languages and scripting, et cetera. RPA is currently recognized as one of the few emerging technologies most capable of automating a significant amount of finance and accounting end-to-end processes. We conducted a webinar last year with RPA, and we had maybe 1,500 attendees globally at that session. And of those attendees, 34% indicated RPA will be the emerging technology with the greatest impact on the finance and accounting profession within the next 3 years. As we think a bit more broadly, and I do like to state this, the longer term future for our profession from a digital technology perspective lies with data analytics, and for RPA lies with intelligent RPA or cognitive RPA. One other thing that's important to think about as we explore the impact of RPA on our profession, McKinsey conducted a detailed analysis of finance and accounting processes and automation software capability. And they found that the capability of automation tools that existed in 2018 could fully automate 42% of finance activities and mostly automate a further 19%. The image that you see on the screen, I designed using some of what McKinsey provided and then overlaying that with the typical processes that are performed by accountants and financial professionals within business. So what you'll see here, the figures demonstrating the correlation between process complexity and automation likelihood, highlighting processes traditionally performed by entry-level accounting and finance staff or individual contributors as most likely to be automated. These are the processes like journal entries and routine close activities, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, reconciliations, et cetera. And so what you'll see as you move up the pyramid there, as the relative complexity of the tasks increases, the higher you go up the pyramid, that is, the automation likelihood reduces for current technological capabilities. And I think that's important to know. So we as finance and accounting professionals, prior to working on an RPA implementation myself, I was a lifer finance and accounting professional and still consider myself so. As finance and accounting professionals, we need to ensure that our activities and our skill set is focused toward the higher end of the pyramid that you see on this screen. Additionally, it's equally important for us to take and play leading roles from a digital technology perspective when it comes to implementing these technologies and how they will affect our processes. One thing that I think is kind of the bright side of this is we should be upskilling to negate the risks of what some consider obsolescence. So it's just recognizing that RPA is a viable option from an automation perspective for several finance and accounting tasks. And I think if we tackle that head on, then we reap tremendous benefits. We found, and I'd say we saw great success when we implemented these solutions in areas across the organization that people deemed pain points, and it freed up time for people to be able to work on more insightful and higher value add opportunities. So what I'll close with is this section on RPA at scale. Many enterprises have already embarked upon their RPA journeys, and that's had significant impact, particularly in the shared services department of the organizations. And there's a decisive shift away from business process outsourcing to automation first, which I presume our colleague from UiPath will speak to. Deloitte conducted a study on RPA, attracting responses from more than 400 organizations globally. And what they found was 53% of respondents had already begun their RPA journeys, and 19% intended to begin within the next couple of years. However, of all of those organizations that are already actively working on this, only 3% of those organizations had actually scaled their digital workforce. And scaling RPA currently is defined as moving beyond 50 robots in production. RPA programs are most widely in place in larger enterprises, and the low scaling rate exists despite the wide-reaching applicability of RPA technology, affordability of licenses, and the low barrier to entry for implementation. So we'll focus on now what it takes to successfully implement and scale RPA within an organization. What you see here, organizations often underestimate the complexity of RPA initiatives. Although the software itself is user-friendly and training is free and readily available, there's a large variety of business processes, most of which require more attention, governance, and coordination than any single team member automating on behalf of teams. And I think that's important to call out. There are 3 keys to successfully scaling RPA. And so the work that I'm presenting to you today came about as the result of dozens of interviews across the RPA industry, across finance and accounting organizations as well, and then technology experts more broadly, including the big 4 accounting firms. And so what we found are there are 3 keys to successfully scaling RPA. 1, establishing governance. 2, not compromising on resource quality, and 3, automating the right processes. If we look at each of those a bit deeper, the single most important prerequisite to a successful RPA program is governance, especially in a finance and accounting function, because of the nature of what we're obligated to do from an assurance perspective. An RPA team can have a multi-million-dollar budget and be the best developers on the globe, but without governance, failure is the most likely scenario. That failure can manifest itself anywhere from stalling because there aren't enough quality processes to automate, or compromising the control environment because no RPA coding standards were followed. There's a host of things that could happen in that space. Governance essentially mitigates risk. When we think about what governance is in its purest form, it's a framework for identifying, assessing, and managing risk. And it's about delivering business value to stakeholders in a transparent, compliant, and sustainable manner. What you see on the screen, Deloitte in 2018 identified 5 key risk areas for RPA implementation. And I won't read through everything that you see on the screen there, but I do think it's important to call out that those key risk areas, operational, financial, regulatory, organizational, and technology, exist in every RPA implementation. And the goal of RPA governance is to mitigate risks in those areas. Prior to establishing governance from an RPA perspective, the following prerequisites should be met. Identify key stakeholders and proactively seek their input. Determine the RPA operating model. Conduct an RPA proof of concept and select the RPA tool that you'd like to use. Perform process discovery and then prepare a business case, because of course we don't do anything in business if there isn't a solid business case for it, financial or otherwise. What you'll see here are 7 key components of RPA governance. Once the prerequisites are met that we just discussed, governance documentation can be prepared. And it doesn't matter what format the governance documentation takes. It can be a massive document, it can be a series of one-pagers, etc. But regardless of the length or the style, the governance documentation needs to be easily accessible by all persons that are interacting with the RPA program in any capacity. There is an article from January of 2020 in Strategic Finance that focuses exclusively on RPA governance, where you can read about this in more detail. But the 7 key components that I identified from this study for RPA governance are governing bodies, organizational constructs, operational life cycle. So what process will your individual automation opportunities go through before they are turned into something that reaches production? Internal controls, technology governance, how will you ensure that you have controls in place to make sure people aren't able to automate things that are inappropriate or that pose too great a risk for the organization? Performance management, and then vendor management. The second of the 3 keys to scaling RPA is not compromising on resource quality. This is something that I experienced personally, as well as discussed with a host of RPA program leads, that there's this significant spike in RPA from a popularity perspective. And that has also resulted in a huge spike in the number of companies that say they are able to implement RPA programs. Without a serious way to vet those organizations, then you sometimes run the risk of partnering with companies who aren't ready to provide that support. I encourage you to work with your RPA vendor to ensure that you're able to adequately vet the partner that you choose for your implementation. 3 primary operating models for RPA: centralized, decentralized, and federated. What we see here, the fundamental differences between the operating models are whether there will be a central team leading governance and implementation, which is the centralized approach, a central hub focused on governance with various spokes in different parts of the organization, leading implementation for their respective areas, which would be the decentralized approach, or all governance and implementation sitting within respective business units, departments, or teams. That's the federated approach. There's also the concept of democratization of RPA, where there's a bot for every employee or for every member of the team. And so those are things that are important to think about as you understand what resources do you need, how do you need to upskill the staff that you have, and how much will you rely on your staff versus third parties to assist. Lastly, automating the right processes. Despite the breadth of process areas with RPA applicability, all processes are not created equal. So we need to think about how to fill the hopper with ideas. There's a couple of ways to do that: bottom up, top down, and then inspired by problems or audit and analytical findings. Bottoms up, you may see people hosting ideation sessions, which is something that I did in my experience, inviting everyone within the department to submit ideas and then prioritizing them and ascribing value to them. Top down, leadership says we have a gap that we need to fill. Can RPA fill it? And then sometimes there are audit findings or other issues that arise that inspire the need for this. Fundamentally, you're asking yourself 2 questions when prioritizing automation opportunities, and that's: can we automate or should we automate? And if you look at the report in more detail, as well as the article that's been published in Strategic Finance, you can read through some of the detailed points for how to prioritize automation opportunities. Lastly, I'll just close with, there are ways for finance and accounting professionals to get involved, and that's by either filling some of these RPA program roles that you see on the screen. I served as product owner of the RPA program from an RPA and an AI perspective. You could be a scrum master, you could be a business analyst, a solution architect. There's a whole host of roles that need to be filled. And if you want to learn more about filling any of those specific roles, then find out first at your organization if there's already an RPA program underway. If you're further along than that, engage leadership and your IT department to learn how you can get involved. You can deepen RPA knowledge through IMA's e-learning series. We've created 4 courses on RPA that will teach you about that, and they can be accessed at myima.org/RPA. You can go to these RPA vendors that are available. These are the leading ones. Fortunate that we have UiPath, which happens to be the platform that I'm most familiar with here with us today. And then consider learning more about Agile methodology and Scrum framework, which also is quite popular in RPA implementations. So I'll close with, effectively, automation is here to stay. Digital teammates are already on the payroll, and leadership is assigning them finance and accounting tasks. So think through what offerings RPA vendors have, the complexity of the processes digital teammates can perform. With intelligent RPA will undoubtedly increase to become more efficient. That effectively has to happen. Now equipped with this information, those of you who haven't yet embraced RPA are prepared and hopefully encouraged to proceed as the profession embarks upon a bright yet different future. Alongside digital teammates, the business world should brace itself as the power of the transformed finance and accounting function is unleashed. With that, I'll turn it back over to Alain and look forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, L'Oreal. It was really an impressive presentation. Also, if you want to download the report, that's available on imanet.org. You can download it for free. And we will also send you a link to the report in a few days after this conference, so then you can also easily download it. We will take 2 questions, I think, before we go to the panel. L'Oreal, for you. One question from Turka: do you think having a CMA certificate differentiates us from another in the US and other countries, and how can we increase our RPA skills set, and do you have any suggestions?
Absolutely. So yes, the CMA differentiates you. Happy to answer that one quickly. One thing that's unique about the CMA designation or credential is the introduction of the technology and analytics component. Most of the accounting certifications or credentials that are out there have not yet fully embraced the technology and analytics aspect of upskilling that's required. And I think that's important, an important distinction there. So in the CMA credential, you'll see things like RPA, like AI, like data warehouses covered. And I think that's a really important distinction in preparing you for the long term. The second part of the question, Alain, was that what can we do to upskill with RPA? Is that what you asked me?
Yes, what can you do to upskill your RPA skill set?
Okay. So IMA has a 4-part learning series. I'm excited to say that I presented and prepared all the content for that. Within a couple of hours, you can take 4 different RPA courses. They're self-study courses online, all again accessible at imanet.org. That's an easy way to not have to fully invest, if you will, and to see if you'd like to learn more. Beyond the RPA series that's available with IMA, each of the RPA vendors has programs, robust training programs available, some of them free online. And that's how I learned to develop processes with UiPath. I went to their Learning Academy online. So lots of resources available.
Thanks so much. Let's go to the panel. I think we have a lot to cover. Before we do, I will briefly introduce everyone.
Okay, Mihai Faur, I'm Chief Accounting Officer and Controller of UiPath. I've been with the company since the beginning.
Great, thank you for joining us. Nice having you on this panel. And then we also have Armand Angeli.
Okay, just a few words. So yes, thank you for your invitation first. Yes, and Armand Angeli, I am actually in charge of the, we have I would say, a think tank or a committee discussing, exchanging around RPA and AI in the French CFO Association. And I'm pleased to say I'm leading this, this think tank.
Great, thank you. Nice having you as well. And Fatima El Wakil.
Yeah, I'm Fatima El Wakil. I like to see myself as more of a data analytics enthusiast, really. who creates the right ecosystems for successful data analytics transformation. I lead the data analytics COE for Jaguar Land Rover Financial Services.
Great, thank you. Nice having you. And then we have Professor Frank Verbeten.
I'm a professor of accounting at the University of Amsterdam Business School, former IMA Professor Europe for 2 years, and yeah, doing research in how finance functions basically adapt technology and how that affects their operations.
Great, thank you. Nice having you. And then Brian Barr.
Hi, I'm Brian Barr. I'm the VP and Financial Controller for Plastic Omnium, auto component supplier based in Paris, France. And as a hobby, I'm leading the finance transformation in our group as well, and we're piloting RPA right now.
Great, thank you so much. Armand, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Alain, and so thank you again for your invitation. So we had a great overview from L'Oréal. So now we would like to go into maybe some real life experience and recommendations from the finance executives we have tonight. Indeed, RPA is a key tool for finance transformation. But maybe we should start with what do we mean by finance transformation, and what are the key priorities for CFOs nowadays, and actually what can be the impact of COVID on this finance transformation. So we are going to have Fatima take this first question, and the other ones can pitch in, and then we'll go to the next questions with other speakers. So Fatima, if you would like to say a few words. Fatima, you are mute. We would like to hear you. Thank you.
This is the most thing that I've heard like during 2020, really. Well, like looking into COVID really and the impact. I mean, for me at least, I haven't been to the office since March 2020. So all the work, the way things have changed is massive. It's impacting the business a lot. And the way we do our processes, and we look into our financials. I believe that the companies will need data analytics to be able to take decisions. The main focus for the CFOs was really to improve the financial health of the companies. A lot of companies have been hit during COVID. Finance touches all areas of the business. There will be more need to create saving, embrace change, act on transformation, really. The need for creating models and scenarios ASAP, that would be a need. The priorities for the CFO, I think there are 3 main priorities. One of them is value-driven analytics. The second would be creating a strategy or a roadmap for data analytics. And the last bit is actually understanding the skill set within his or her team. And if I look into value-driven analytics, which is the first thing I started with as a priority, a lot of companies previously were like, oh, let's get into analytics. We need to do something with analytics. Let's do robotics. Let's do business data engineering. And all those like buzzwords were thrown everywhere. I think after COVID, understanding that data engineering is actually structuring data, data cleansing, RPA, and how bots actually can help the business, it'll be more of like putting a business case. If we're doing data analytics, why are we doing it? So, and I think it's kind of a major change in mindset. And yeah, maybe understanding, as I said, yeah, the second and third is really understanding the data analytics strategy and roadmap. Looking into the tools that can be used in RPA or in data analytics, the vendors are out there, creating the maturity roadmap for the company. Where is the company now? What is the vision for it to make use of data analytics? And basically taking more of, with the changes with COVID, I guess it's more taking those kind of strategic decisions or operational decisions to support the business. And you can't take those decisions without understanding really the value. So yeah, I guess those are the priorities that I think would be the main things.
Okay, thank you. Before we go and discuss the actual levers of transformation with Brian, maybe the other members of the panel would like to add a few words on the priorities and the impact of COVID. Mia or Frank or
Yeah, I think COVID exposed in many companies that most of the processes are done manually and not automated. Especially that was a pressure on the bottom line to be improved. And, that showed basically that, not only that the processes are manual and there's a lot of redundant work that is done manually and not through the systems, but also show probably some of the gaps in the system landscapes that the company have, and they had to basically rethink their processes. Because automation doesn't work if the process is not structure at this moment and if the process is not aligned. So understanding the process is critical to the automation. So I think COVID shifted somehow the focus to the systems and to the processes.
Okay, anybody else would like to add before we move on to Brian on priorities?
I think
COVID?
maybe I'd just say a few things because I hear the CEOs and the CFOs priorities all the time, and the environment is our customers are going digital, our competitors are going digital, and we're risking our survival if we're not getting on this train. They see that, so they're looking for better, faster, cheaper. They're looking for us as a finance function, just as Fatima said, to have more time and more focus on better analysis, better looking forward. And really, I think that the last key thing is if we don't do this, we're not going to attract the talented employees we need to keep our pipeline full of good people for the future.
Okay, Brian, we will come back to you. Maybe Frank, you would just a few words before we move.
Yeah, very shortly. I think the digitalization is not going to stop. It's going to go faster. And what I hear is that a lot of people are looking at finance to see how can we free up the funds to go digital, and where can finance help to bring in those funds to make the transition possible. So I think that's another issue which has gotten to attention.
Good, thank you.
Can I say something, Armand? It's not only about the transformation of the systems and the processes, but it's a journey to the employees as well. This is not about reducing the cost. This is giving a path to the employees to be focused more on analytics and understanding and building automation rather than doing the manual work, doing the manual repetitive tasks. So that was always UiPath was saying. This is not about, this is about getting, achieving, it's reaching human achievement basically through automation. Yeah.
Actually, you already mentioned a little bit what Brian can say when we talk about levers and how RPA can help actually. But so what are the actual levers that you see for finance transformation and automation?
Yeah, thanks, Armand. And I've been doing the finance transformation work off and on for the last 20 years. And I think 20 years ago, it was really around an ERP implementation. And the levers were around process, system, and organization. And I think really, and it was about cost reduction. And to build just on what Mihai was saying a moment ago, we're moving the needle over from cost reduction onto value. And the levers, there's more levers now. Process, organization are still there. System, it's not going to be an ERP implementation that takes 5 years to do 45 sites. I mean, if you read my CV online, that's going to be one of my highlights. But 5 years now, we've got digital tools and we can roll things out worldwide much more quickly. The other levers that I think have changed over the years are the competencies lever. And really the questions that came up and what L'Oreal was saying a few minutes ago, we've got to really reshape the competency in our organization, in our finance functions. to be able to use the digital tools in terms of data governance, to build up our analyst skills and data visualization skills. And I think the last lever that's changing is really, I'd call it our customer experience, our customers management. And our customer is in a volatile environment. Our customer needs insight, needs analysis for better decision making. And the analytics and the things we're doing with these tools are really a need and something we can deliver value with. So I think I just conclude that it's some of the levers are the same, but there's more, and they've evolved over the years. And really the big evolution is from cost to value.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
I concur with Brian. That was very well said. I think beside automation, you have design thinking and standardization at being levers, basically, of the digital transformation. And if the human is not in the center of the digital transformation, basically taking the human from, allocating to the humans so they can reach their potential by doing more the value-added tasks versus transactional manual activities. That's, I think, it's responsibilities for the leaders. That's our responsibility as leaders.
Thank you, Mihai. Frank, anything to add on the levers for transformation?
Following that, I mean, we are really saying that, human at the center. If the humans don't understand that, it's very difficult to get this through. I fully conclude with that. But if you talk to companies, then a lot of companies are saying, let's get in new people and get the old people out. And that's sort of saying, that's the transformation. I don't think it's like that. I think that you need to also put a lot of effort in training the people that you currently have in order to make that change as well. Because even if you, let's say, bring in 1/3 of new employees, that's leaving 2/3 of the old department or the people already working there. Not maybe being able to make the transition. So I'm not sure how it is in other countries, but I hear in the Netherlands, there's some reluctance at companies to invest in people in order to make that transition. And I think that's really key. That's a responsibility for companies as well as employees. Companies should be able to offer that. Employees should be able to take on the challenge.
But Frank, I can say something, that this transition is not only companies' transition, it's the RPA and artificial intelligence companies to develop tools that can be easily used by business users. And that's a roadmap that we all have to take. I mean, going from traditional RPA to artificial intelligence is a roadmap. And I think UiPath, every other company has a roadmap to get those products to be so easily, to be used by the business users. So there's no need for too much training.
Not too much, but if
not too much.
Again, 1 or 2 years ago, we did a survey where do you get your information, and I think it's really good that IMA gives this information to members. But then the question was, where do you get your information? And people said, well, I get it from external consultants, I get it from websites, but I hardly get any opportunity from my company to do this. And I fully agree. It's low code. You can start, and maybe it's the interest of the person who should develop this and get onto it, but you should actually also get some time within the company to see, okay, where can we change things? How should we do this, and so on.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Any Fatima, anything to add? You don't have to, but I think you have to. You want to.
I wanted to, beside the levers that I want to discuss, but I think the point that Frank really highlighted is important. Going out to the market and getting new people is important to get to make sure that you pump the right, fresh ideas, but letting go of your current employees is not really the right way to do it, because those employees know the system inside out. Some of them, they are struggling, but they'll be the first people to actually want the change if you've got the right buy-in. One of the things that we've done in the company to be able to support, because Frankie was saying, where do they get the information they have to go and read, or we've done small focus groups, for example, and we started to do training internally and ask people to come, and it will be part of their hours. And that kind of encouraged the change mindset. And just I wanted to add 2 things to the levers really. Continuous transformation mindset, which was picked on at the start. I think this is a non-stop process, as Mihai and Brian mentioned. This is really important because we're saying, well, we want to do transformation. In 10 years' time, we'll come again and say, well, we need to do another transformation because the technology is evolving. And the second lever, I think, is really, really important. And I could see it across different companies that I've been with, and I've seen it very clear in my current role, is the leadership. Leadership is really important when it comes to transformation, because if you get the buy-in from above and they use the technology, it helps a lot to get the employees actually confident in the change. So one of the things we've done in the team when I first started in this team, we created all the fancy things, like looked in the data lake, did like plans for AI or machine learning, and did robotics, and then the final output was a nice Tableau dashboard that they were able to kind of really slice and dice and understand the impact. And the leadership team, they made sure that they used this with their like the operational senior leadership team. They made sure that they used this dashboard. And that helped build this kind of transfer, because people are like, okay, let me learn. How can I actually do this myself now? And I think this is really one of the important levers.
Okay, thank you. Frank, anything to add? No, you're fine. Okay, otherwise we can move to the next question, actually. And we'll start with Mihai. L'Oreal mentioned it, RPA can be very simple, but now we are moving to platform where we're adding more tools, AI tools, process discovery tools, data extraction tools, chatbots, and so on. So Mia, you are using UiPath, so you must be using all these tools. So can you tell us what is your journey from basic RPA to automate basic tasks to the platforms to make your life easier?
Yeah, so let me start with the confession. When I joined the company in 2016, I was a little bit skeptical about the use of RPA, traditional RPA, and I was kind of a non-believer in the power of RPA. But in the last 3 years, I had some epiphanies when we were growing very fast and our processes were changing from one month to another. People were very systems were new, so we had to automate a lot of things. And I learned the power of the easiness of implementing or automating the processes and relieving people from doing repetitive tasks. That helped me a lot to be more agile. Traditional RPA basically focuses on build and running automations, and now we have developed from not only the design piece of the automation, the running piece of the automation, whether it's attended or unattended, and the orchestration, but we also focus on like the discovery phase. We have an automation hub where we share ideas about automation. That's a good thing for the lessons learned for the question 4. And then we have also process and task mining. And more recently now we focus from going on-prem to cloud. Yeah, we have a cloud orchestrated tool where the automations can be uploaded and run on-prem. But I think recently the artificial intelligence tools that we have developed and we have put into the market, are related to basically getting the human into the loop, getting the human to be part of an automation that requires basically human intervention. That's called AI Fabric, yeah, which is, if you run, for example, I'll just give an example, yeah, if you do an automation and let's say you build an automation that checks your email and finds email that relates to vendor dissatisfaction. You publish this in the AI Fabric, which is a component of the orchestrator. And when this model is running, it gives information to the user of the process. And the user can basically, you can let the robot continue to send to the human to validate the work done by the model, basically. If the work done is correct or is not correct, basically the data is fed back into the model. So the same transaction, when it comes again, it will increase the level of confidence, and the results will be more accurate. So it's the human into the process, the human intervenes into the process and changes somehow the process in a real time. And we also have another artificial intelligence product. It's called Document Understanding. It's basically an OCR that is reading different documents, and it's getting the data out of those documents, and using a robot can key in those data, whether you have an ERP, whether we have procurement to pay systems. We use that, for example, for getting the data out of the invoices from accounts payable and doing a three-way matching in our purchase to pay system. This helps a lot because, so this machine learning, it learns the documentation, it learns the document, it continues learns, and the user is training this machine learning. So we are still at the inception of the artificial intelligence, but the path it's already laid out in front of us. So we just have to walk on this path. Traditional RPA is long gone, I think.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, because sometimes people think RPA is very basic, but actually RPA and even more with what UiPath is proposing now, it's moving to a full platform with all the tools you described. Brian, you are just started with RPA, so are you convinced that you should move to the platform that I described?
Well, we're a UiPath customer. And I don't know if anybody knew that. We're very much at the beginning, though, with the pilots, but we're going to start looking on a bigger scale. We're convinced on the benefits, and we're going to roll it up. I mean, it doesn't mean we don't want to look at the traditional things before we start putting a robot on. Do we really need to do the work? Can we do it simpler? Can we standardize it first? And we've got to look at all those aspects of process change before we put a robot on the job.
Correct.
Exactly.
And Brian, you need to have the systems, running perfectly. Processes needs to be clear. Now, artificial intelligence is more focused on when those processes are much more complex and the human is required, or where you have unstructured data that you want to take out and record them. So the path is there, the technology is there. I think the speed of developing the technology has been like enormous increase over the years. So we will see a lot of company coming up with technology and tools for artificial intelligence. So
okay, thank you, Frank. Actually, Fatima, where are you with the journey from RPA to the full platform with process discovery, with data extraction, chatbots, all of these things?
So we are. Sorry?
Not there yet, right?
You're what? Sorry, can you say that again?
You are not there yet. You are still in a journey.
We're on a journey. I think we have some robots. We have some things that we're doing in my team, which are so we've created some of the automated some of the processes. And it is a journey. It is a long journey. And the more there is development, as even like Mihai was saying now, what we thought the robot would do like a few years ago in terms of just, automating the main processes. Now there is, it gets more into AI and so on. And I think one of the things I was reading the other day, and I loved how Mihai explained it, was I was reading a McKinsey report the other day, and it says, it was speaking about IPA, and it just said, well, it takes the robot out of the human. And I thought that's really quite a smart way to say it. But then when Mihai now was explaining the bit about AI, I was like, you're actually empowering also the robot by creating the rules and the ability to do some analysis and take actions. And it's quite interesting to kind of, understand even robotics is on a journey. And it's quite, I think we're quite lucky to be on this journey while the technology is actually evolving.
Thank you, Fatima. So Frank, tell us more about lessons learned and recommendations you can give to the audience.
First one is I think Amara's law, and Amara was a scientist at MIT in the 60s, and he said basically the impact of technology is overestimated in the short run, yet underestimated in the long run. And if you ask people, we did a survey 3 years ago, we asked people, okay, where are you currently with RPA? And then about, let's say 20% was, 20% of the activities in finance was done by RPA. And then people said, we asked them, okay, 3 years from now, where do you think you will be? And then people said, oh, we're going to have 50, maybe 60% of our activities automated. 3 years later, we asked them, it was a somewhat different sample, but still we had, let's say, 30% of the activities automated, which indicates basically that people expect a lot from technology, but it's also a lot of hard work to implement it. So it's going forward. And because of the developments also what mentioned by Mihai and Fatima, the new technology can do more things. So we implement stuff, and then because technology moves forward, we can also develop new stuff, which we have to implement as well again. So it's not going to stop, but it's going to take more time than generally most people think it will take in the beginning or to start with. The other thing is that if you ask people what issues are there, then ethical issues seem to be less of an issue according to financials. But if you ask data scientists, then that's basically the key issue. For example, at Google, the chief artificial intelligence and robotics is basically saying, okay, we believe that the biggest challenge is the ethical behavior of our of our software, basically. And I'm a little bit worried that the financials may, I'm not sure whether we have an adequate grip on that. Let me put it like that.
Okay. Okay. Anything else to add, the other panelists, on lessons learned? Actually, we are about out of time, so maybe each of you can, based on your experience, share one recommendation or tip on how to start with automation, and yeah, what are the snags to watch for?
A quick one for me, based on our experience, internal experience using automation. I have more than 120 robots just in finance developed in 2 years. It's decide on the model. L'Oreal presented the centralized, decentralized, and federalized model. I guess, in my opinion, what works very well, the functional leaders or the business owners should be the one to drive the automation, should be from inside. It should not be imposed by IT or by someone else. The best people actually to understand and work and help basically in automating, it's the people that are working on the processes. That's my opinion. So it has to come from them. So if you can raise that level of awareness and just, show them, they can only understand if they're doing it. If they're doing it, if they're seeing the results, they will get an appetite of doing these automations. Yeah. It has to start from inside and should not be something coming ex cathedra for someone saying you have to do this and this and this and this. That's our lesson one.
Okay, thank you. Fatima, any recommendations for people who want to start with the RPA journey?
I think the bit I can recommend is actually, if it's not there in the company, try to do a proof of concept. Start small, and because it can be overwhelming starting. It is really overwhelming. If someone is not in the area, they'd be like, okay, where do I start? So do something small, automate even a small process, which this is how we started. Like, automate something, just proof of concept, let the team see it, and then when they see the benefit, they'll get the buy-in. And I think, Brian, we were discussing that yesterday, and you were I was quite impressed because he went actually also live. So it wasn't even like a small proof of concept. It's a real life case of a robotic process. And I think it's really important to start small and just get quickly and get this kind of, show the team the impact that you can do. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, and I think I'd just continue on that. It's a completely, and I said this before, but it's a completely different transformation process than the ERP one of the old days that was top-down, centrally led. The lesson learned is there's a tremendous opportunity. We can free up a lot of time. We can free up a lot of people's pent-up frustrations. We can free up a lot of creativity in the organization. We've really got to have the right structures that encourage people to act, of course, without creating a lot of duplication and chaos in the organization. But I'd give a second one. We did a pirate implementation. We did it before the governance was in place, before anybody had chosen the vendors or anything. And I guess if you don't have the skills inside, don't hesitate to call for help and find somebody. There's people outside that can help you.
Okay, thank you. We had a few questions, but I believe we did answer some of the questions that I could read. If not, we will answer directly to each of you. And I guess for sake of time, I'm going to thank you, unless you have a burning. Oh, it's fine. So Alain, so thank you first to all the panelists. And Alain, the floor is back to you, if you would like to. Alain?
I was on mute. It happens to me sometimes. No, thank you so much. It was really an impressive panel. So thank you to all the panelists. So we have come to an end of this webinar with this very impressive panel. Let me thank L'Oréal Giles for your very interesting presentation, and also thank you to Miao Far, Fatima El-Wakil, Professor Frank Verbeet, Brian Barr for joining our panel. And of course, a special thanks to Armand for chairing the panel. Very nicely done. You really covered the essence. And finally, I would like to thank UiPath for partnering with us on this webinar. And thank you to all participants who joined us from all over Europe. Let me note, IMA members, that you will receive your CPE. Sometimes it can take a few weeks before it's added to your list, but it will come. We will also share the presentation from L'Oréal in the thank you email you receive in just a few days. So that will also happen, and then we will also add a link where you can access the RPA report from IMA. So once again, I hope to see you again on one of our future webinars. Thank you for the participation, and remember, automation is here and developments will go faster and faster, like Frank said. So don't let the transformation pass you. Good luck, stay safe, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.